Mezirow's theory of adult education. Transformation. Like a butterfly, the word conjures up images of flight, grace, and soaring change. Transformative moments force us from our cozy cocoons out into a new and unknown world. Transformative experiences allow us to move from one plane to another, soaring to attainable heights. Transformative ideas have been known to change the world. The human need to grow is unquestionable. For our species, change is always around the corner. Seeking and searching, we strive for purpose in our lives, loves, and limitations. Mezirow clarified, our need to understand our experiences is perhaps our most distinctly human attribute. Transformative education combines discovering, seeking, questioning, revising, revamping, and reflecting into a holistic and often transcendent learning experience. In transformative learning, thinking and learning are overlapping terms. The educational experiences of adults tend to be most influential when based on transformation, whether metamorphoses of meaning, culture, perspective, or outlook. Goleman, cited in Mezirow, referred to adult culture and background as a basket of frames, a collective store of associative images and chains that suggests the nature of coherence, probability, and sense within a given world. When adult learners begin to recognize these innate biases and move into the understanding of their own idiosyncratic views, they begin to comprehend the task of change. As Mezirow revealed, becoming aware of our limitations can help us learn how to compensate for them. If transformation is to take place, individuals must examine their own unique collections of distortions and dysfunctions. Left uncorrected, our personal distortions can significantly hinder adult learning. Our perceiving, thinking, feeling, and acting may be carried out either habitually or thoughtfully, but in either case, these modes of action. While our childhood education was primarily foundational, adult learning tends to be most life-altering when transformational. During the intense process of transition, the learner must scrutinize her background, history, and culture in order to create lasting and meaningful change. We are all but a collection of our prior selves. A realization of our current identities, combining both past and present, is fundamental in attaining true transformation. Our continued learning becomes dependent upon a reflective review of what we have learned, how we have learned it, and whether our presuppositions are warranted. Transformation is powerful because of its ability to alter our very selves. Typically, a transformation is considered irreversible, testifying to its strength and influence. As an adult steps into the ocean of change, the currents tug strongly at self, sense, and security. All these can be challenged by the forceful undertow. The learner must use all her skills, scrutiny, action, communication, and reflection, to safely emerge on the sandy coast of transformation. A successful passage implies a journey that challenges heart, mind, and soul. As the adult learner swims to the surface, her eyes travel upward, seeking out and finding the coherent and complete horizon of expectant transformation. Jack Mezirow, professor at Columbia University, authored Transformative Dimensions of Adult Learning, a seminal work of transformative education. In his work, Mezirow identified 10 phases of perspective transformation. He based his study on a group of 83 women returning to college. His in-depth interviews identified the orienting dilemma. Second, examination of feelings. Third, critical self-assessment. Fourth, recognition of discontent and transformation. Fifth, exploration of new options, new roles, and new possibilities. Sixth, course of action that was planned. 7. Acquisition of knowledge, skills, or training for implementing one's new plan. 8. The trying on of new roles. 9. The building and creation of competence and self-confidence in the new roles and new relationships. And lastly, and most importantly, a reintegration to one's life on the basis of conditions brought about by the disorienting perspective. Our need to understand our experiences is perhaps our most distinctively human attribute. This is the basis of Mezirow's transformational learning theory. As adult learners, we are caught up in our own histories. These include prior learning, childhood education, socialization, norms, values, various experiences, various ways of looking at the world, ideologies, repressions, and beliefs. Whereas childhood learning is formative, adult learning becomes transformative. Various life occurrences can cause what Mezirow terms perspective transformation. These can include death, illness, divorce, children leaving home, trauma at work, the incidence of failure, retirement, or any other major transition. Any major challenge to an established perspective can result in a transformation, stated Mezirow. Transformative learning involves a reflective assessment of premises. To Mezirow, adult development is seen as an adult's progressively enhanced capacity to validate prior learning through reflective discourse and to act upon the resulting insights. Anything that moves the individual toward a more inclusive, differentiated, permeable, and integrated meaning perspective, the validity of which has been established through rational discourse, aids in an adult's development. Reality is constituted by perception through experience. This is important because, according to Mezirow, quote, our interpretations are fallible and often are predicated upon unreliable assumptions. Examining critically the justification for our interpretations and the meaning schemes and perspectives that they express is a major imperative of modern adulthood. Meaning schemes and meaning perspectives are both important to Mezirow. These are the structure of knowledge, beliefs, values, judgments, and other forms that we assimilate throughout our life. Often, these result in distorted views of reality. Mezirow borrowed heavily from Jürgen Habermas and Dewey. There are many borrowed ideas, including Habermas's communicative learning and Dewey's experiential learning and reflection. For Mezirow, reflective learning and action are the biggies in transformative education. Reflection, according to Mezirow, is a central dynamic in intentional learning, problem solving, and validity testing through rational discourse. Reflective thinking and action can correct distorted assumptions. We often mislead ourselves with errors. And, for Mezirow, a distorted assumption or premise is one that leads the learner to view reality in a way that arbitrarily limits what's included, impedes differentiation, lacks permeability or openness to other ways of seeing, or doesn't facilitate an integration of experience. Therefore, becoming aware of our limitations can help us learn how to compensate for them. For Mezirow, a crucial aspect of transformative learning was critical reflection. Borrowing heavily from Dewey, critical reflection is elevated to action, to thought, and to process. Only through studied reflection is perspective transformation possible. An apt example of transformative education may be the famous British playwright Oscar Wilde. Oscar Wilde's transformative view of art and aesthetic purpose were shaped not through personal epiphany, but rather through a strenuous period of imprisonment forced upon him. For 2 years, Wilde lived under conditions of privation and hardship, sentenced to hard labor as a result of his homosexual activities. At the time, both illegal and punishable in his homeland of England. Though the charges stem from his lengthy romantic relationship with Lord Alfred Douglas, Wilde's involvement with other men came to the surface during the trial, shocking and titillating the public that once enthusiastically embraced his flamboyant, dramatic artistry, and that now seemed to delight in his sordid downfall. In prison, Wilde himself came to realize the self-deception involved in his prior life, especially regarding his overzealous and hedonistic relationship with Lord Alfred. Coming to terms with his perceptual errors, Wilde went through a transformative process to change his frame of reference. Mezirow revealed, a distorted assumption or premise is one that leads the learner to view reality in a way that arbitrarily limits what's included, impedes differentiation, lacks permeability or openness to other ways of seeing, or does not facilitate an integration of experience. Wilde's prison experience was life-altering. He entered the locked gates at the height of his popular and professional success and emerged after 2 years a physically broken and penniless man. In fact, less than 2 years after his release, Wilde died, at least partially due to the ill physical effects of his harsh confinement. Wilde's reflection found physicality. Toward the end of his imprisonment, Wilde was finally allowed to put pen to paper and write, albeit under direct supervision. What he wrote, De Profundis, became a remarkable view into one man's heart, a document that reveals how the artist himself places his very soul under a microscope. Reflectively, he considered his plight and traced his transformation, ending at a place of self-realization. Desire, at the end, was a malady or a madness or both, wrote Wilde. As Wilde delved into his life, he found responsibility for his sins. I must say to myself that I ruined myself, and that nobody great or small can be ruined except by his own hand. Wilde's De Profundis, which means from the depths in Latin, reveals a mature artist at the apex of his expressive talent while tumbling in the darkest abyss of his life. The form of his composition was a letter composed to Lord Alfred, though it was written on 20 rough pages of prison paper and never sent to its intended recipient. The second part of the letter begins with Wilde's profound realization that, quote, suffering is one very long moment. We cannot divide it by seasons. With us, time itself does not progress. It revolves. It seems to circle round one center of pain. Wilde's eloquent writing pressed itself onto the paper for all to remember and read. When first I was put into prison, some people advised me to try and forget who I was. It was ruinous advice. It was only by realizing what I am that I have found comfort of any kind. Now I'm advised by others to try on my release to forget that I've ever been in a prison at all. I know that would be equally fatal. It would mean that I will always be haunted by the intolerable sense of disgrace, and that those things that are meant for me as much as for anybody else, the beauty of the sun and moon, the pageant of the seasons, the music of daybreak and the silence of great nights, the rain falling through the leaves, or the dew creeping over the grass and making it silver, would all be tainted for me and lose their healing power and their power of communicating joy. To regret one's own experiences is to arrest one's own development. To deny one's own experiences is to put a lie into the lips of one's own life. It is no less than a denial of the soul. In the end, Oscar Wilde's transformative experience utterly changed who he was and how he saw the world, what Mezirow would qualify as a truly transformative moment. He wrote, "The only people I would care to be with now are artists and people who have suffered. Those who know what beauty is and those who know what sorrow is. Nobody else interests me." Mezirow defined transformative education and transformation as transformation that can lead developmentally toward a more inclusive, differentiated, permeable, and integrated perspective, and that, insofar as is possible, we all naturally move toward. This is what development means in adulthood. Therefore, for Mezirow, transformative learning involved an enhanced level of awareness of the context of one's beliefs and feelings, a critique of their assumptions and particularly premises, an assessment of alternative perspectives, a decision to negate an old perspective in favor of a new one, to make a synthesis of old and new, an ability to take action based upon a new perspective, and a desire to fit the new perspective into the broader context of one's own life. There has been some criticism surrounding the idea of what it means to be a transformative educator. How does one, as a teacher of adult learners, bring them to a transformative education? Can every experience be transformative? The answer is no, but there are essential virtues defined by Mezirow and his